The last words Elena Rodriguez heard her mother speak weren't in English. They were in a language that had been silenced by machines, by hospital corridors that echoed only with medical terminology, by a daughter too busy climbing corporate ladders to sit beside a hospital bed and learn the songs her mother hummed in her native tongue. Now, 3 years later, Elena stood frozen in the doorway of Lincoln Elementary's after-school program, watching her 7-year-old daughter Sophia sob uncontrollably in the corner while other children played around her. The familiar knot of panic tightened in Elena's chest, the same feeling that had consumed her since David's father died 6 months ago, leaving her to navigate single parenthood while running a Fortune 500 company. "She's been like this for 20 minutes, whispered Mrs. Patterson, the program coordinator, her voice heavy with concern. "We can't get her to tell us what's wrong. She just keeps crying and speaking in, well, we're not sure what language." Elena's heart shattered as she recognized the melodic words tumbling from her daughter's lips. It was Quechua, her grandmother's language, her mother's first language, the language Elena had been too embarrassed to learn as a child, too busy to preserve as an adult, and too late to embrace before her mother's final breath. But someone else in that room understood every word. 9-year-old Marcus Thompson looked up from his worn copy of Charlotte's Web, his dark eyes serious beyond his years. He'd been sitting quietly in the reading corner when Sophia's cries began, and while other children gradually moved away from the distressed girl, he had moved closer. Marcus knew what it felt like to be trapped inside your own emotions with no way to let them out. His father, Jerome, worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat after his mother left 2 years ago. Marcus had learned early that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was simply listen, really listen, to someone else's pain. Setting down his book, Marcus walked over to where Sophia huddled against the wall, her tiny fists pressed against her eyes. He sat down beside her, not saying anything at first, just letting his presence speak for itself. Then, in halting but recognizable Quechua, he whispered, "Mana Lakichu. Kapanyam Kani. Don't cry, I'm here." Sophia's sobs caught in her throat. She looked up at this boy she barely knew, her tear-stained face filled with wonder. In her native language, the language she only spoke with her grandmother during weekend visits, the language her busy mother never had time to learn, she asked, "You understand me?" Marcus nodded, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. His response came slowly, each word carefully chosen. "My mama taught me before she left. She said words in any language can heal hearts." Elena watched from the doorway as this extraordinary child, this boy who clearly had his own struggles, whose clothes were clean but obviously secondhand, whose backpack was held together with duct tape, offered her daughter something she, with all her success and resources, could not, understanding in the purest form. Over the following weeks, Elena found herself arriving early to pick up Sophia, not because of work emergencies, but because she was drawn to witness the unlikely friendship blooming between her daughter and Marcus. She learned that Jerome Thompson cleaned office buildings downtown, including the very building where Elena's company headquarters stood. She discovered that Marcus spent his afternoons at the program not because his father couldn't afford better childcare, but because Jerome believed in community, in the idea that children should learn alongside peers from all backgrounds. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday evening when Elena arrived to find Sophia teaching Marcus to write Quechua words while he helped her with math homework. Their heads bent together over shared notebooks, they were creating something beautiful, a bridge between worlds, languages, and experiences. "Mrs. Rodriguez." Marcus looked up as Elena approached. In careful English, he added, "Sophia told me about her grandmother. My mom used to sing me songs in Quechua too, before she decided she needed to find herself somewhere else." Elena's throat constricted. Here was this child, abandoned by his mother, reaching across his own pain to comfort her daughter. She knelt down beside them, and for the first time in her adult life, asked a question in broken Quechua, "Amenatatak Sudiikim. What is your name?" Marcus's face lit up like sunrise. Sophia clapped her hands in delight. And Elena realized that in her relentless pursuit of professional success, she had nearly lost the most important inheritance her mother had tried to leave her. The understanding that connection transcends language, that love speaks in tongues deeper than words, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places. That evening, Elena made a decision that would change everything. She called Jerome Thompson and asked if he and Marcus would join her and Sophia for dinner. Not at some expensive restaurant, but at her kitchen table, where her mother's old Quechua cookbook still sat unopened on the shelf. When Jerome arrived, work-worn but dignified in his carefully pressed shirt, Elena saw something that stopped her breath, humility paired with profound wisdom. As Marcus helped Sophia sound out Quechua recipes while Jerome quietly assisted Elena with pronunciations she should have learned decades ago, Elena understood that her daughter's tears that day hadn't been just about childhood frustration. They had been about the soul-deep longing to be understood, to be met where she was, in the language of her heart. 6 months later, the after-school program had a new volunteer teacher, Elena Rodriguez, CEO by day, student of her own heritage by evening, learning alongside her daughter and the boy who taught them both that kindness speaks every language fluently. Marcus still carried his duct-taped backpack, but now it also held handwritten notes in 3 languages from his friend Sophia. Jerome still worked his 3 jobs, but on weekends, he and Elena took turns shuttling the children between the library and Sophia's grandmother's house, where 4 generations now gathered to keep alive the songs Elena's mother never got to finish teaching. The business world still demanded Elena's attention, but she had learned something more valuable than any merger or acquisition: that success measured in quarterly reports pales beside the wealth found in a child's laughter, in preserved traditions, in bridges built by open hearts, and in the revolutionary act of really, truly listening to one another, no matter what language pain chooses to speak.